Hello, I am Sinfogel. Okay, we got a new data mine, so you know what that means. The last time I did this, I got a few suggestions regarding video length, so I will handle this a little differently. First, we're going to analyze the new sync pairs, and on a separate video, we will check out the new sync grids for the older gacha units. Alright, let's kick this off with my girl Lisia Altaria, the idol master herself. As a first assessment, this unit is very confusing to me, and I am not saying that in a bad way. I've seen a few showcases from Strider Punk, and Altaria has excellent battle prowess, but this unit has so many roles, so many applications, that if you try to do everything at once, you will be underwhelmed. So the best way to play Altaria is focusing on a specific direction and sort of place all your eggs in one basket, and that will generate far better results. Okay, stat-wise, Altaria is excellent, no major complaints here. You got amazing bulk, great offenses, and you also have the perk of a Mega Evolution, so you can enhance your special attack and special defense even further. So Altaria performs adequately as both as a striker and as a tank. The move pool is also interesting, it has a lot of firsts. Twister is an AoE Dragon type move, 2 bars, and it has a 20% chance of flinching. So compared to other flinchers like Grant or Pterodactyl, Altaria is a lot easier to use. It's a lot more practical because you also get a move gauge refresh for Twister, and you can sort of slap this on any composition and it won't give you issues spamming Twister. Where Grant kinda has to hog all the resources of the battle to be able to even function. The Fog, the way this works in main games is that it's supposed to reset the field of play. It removes entry hazards, screens, and terrain. And it functions similarly in Pokémon Masters, but this is also the only way to remove critical shields. It's not even Unhinder can bypass critical shields, so that is a very important application of this move. And it also lowers evasion by 1 stage, which is underwhelming on its own, but on things like Legendary Arena, where debuffs permeate, you could send Lisia as a sacrificial debuffer to lower evasion and help sleep moves always connect if you cannot. If you don't have Serena or don't have Troublemaker 1 on your sleepers, you can have a reliable sleep chain. You can also make a Mega Kick and Hyper Beam always connect without having to worry about accuracy buffing. So for things like that, Defog is an amazing tool. Spotlight Please is a trainer move. It has 2 uses, but it doesn't have NPRs on the grid, so it's only useful for single battles. This thing draws aggro, so you can take damage away from your tank, and it raises defense by 3 stages and special attack by a couple of stages. So a very self-sufficient buff, and it also plays for the rest of Altaria's passives. Then you get Moonblast. Moonblast is a relatively strong 3-bar move that has a 30% chance of lowering the target's special attack. But you don't use this for a side effect. There are better ways to lower a special attack like Viola or Lieutenant Surge in a pinch. So this is mostly for the raw Fairy type damage. So you can get a decent Fairy type striker with this, accounting for all the other multipliers, where the only other competition is Clefairy. So it's a nice move. And when you Mega Evolve, Twister gets replaced by Dragon Pulse. It's a 3-bar move, a little weaker than Draco Meteor, but it has no side effects and 100% accuracy. So these days, asking for straight damage is difficult to ask, so Dragon Pulse is a decent attacking move. The Sync boosts in power when there are no effects at play. So you kind of want to defog before using your sync, just in case the enemies set up something. But this also conflicts with things on Altaria's grid, like a Snow Shelter and a Sun Shelter. But if you play Altaria in Weather, then you won't get the sync buff, so you can... It's just things to consider. The passives are really good. We got Revenge Boost 9. This has a guaranteed chance of raising your move gauge by 1 bar whenever Altaria gets hit. So it's also very nice for tanking if you choose to play Altaria that way. And HP trade of 5, it works like a reverse HP advantage. The lower your HP is, the more damage you will deal. And it works at maximum potential when you are at critical health, when your health bar reaches a red orangey hue. And you start hearing that beep, 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 beep noise warning you about the critical health. You also got Pressure Cooker, has a small chance of lowering the sync countdown by 1 on critical health. It's worthless. And overall, the way you're supposed to play Altaria is by disrupting things and using it as a utility unit. You can do cheap damage with Moonblast. If you Mega Evolve, you get even better bulk and more damage. Or you can choose to flinch the enemy field, reset the field of play, and you can also draw aggro so that you can generate a bit of gauge or activate HP trade-off to its fullest potential. And looking at the grid, we get so many tools to amplify so many roles for Altaria. I think the first thing most people will do is use Altaria as a flinch bot, because 3 out of 5, yeah, it's 3 out of 5 only, unfortunately, you get the Twister Aggravation 1. This adds a reroll for Twister to flinch, so it gets enhanced to 38% chance of flinching, 41%. I don't know the number, I cannot math, but case in point, it's a very spammy source of flinching, because you also get a Twister Moviage Refresh 3, and you're trying to flinch the entire enemy field. And this is a good way to enhance Harry. Use the Harry multiplier, in particular for Summer Steven, because Altaria also gets a Snow Shelter, so you can prevent the hail from chipping away at him, and Summer Steven gets Harry too on his 1-5 grid, so it's a minor multiplier, but you could spam Twister and hope for flinches. That is normally how you want to use Harry, because flinch wears off so fast that you have to have your flincher hope for a flinch and have your striker attack immediately afterwards before the flinch goes away. And you can get a nice boost in damage thanks to Altaria's disruption. And that kind of brings me to my next Altaria application using Harry, because on the top right of the grid we get a ton of offensive multipliers. But in particular, Wide Open, this it's like Hunter's Instinct in that the more you debuff the target evasion, the stronger the power of your moves. And you may know my opinions about Hunter's Instinct. I think it's absolute trash and not worth using, because debuff-based multipliers are very difficult to set up. Especially true for Altaria, because Altaria is pretty much the only reliable way of dropping evasion in the game. People like Oak and Borg can lower evasion with the 4-9, or maybe even Serena with Stat Leech, but it's random. You cannot have certainty on whether the evasion drop will happen. And when your tech has to apply its asteroids, it means that they are doing tech things, but they are not attacking. And you want your striker to attack to keep your DPS up. So Wide Open is not easy. It's not easy to use, very hard to set up, and I guess you get a clear view one. This adds an additional debuff drop when you use defog, but this can be handy for Legendary Arena, because debuffs permeated through all the phases of a boss, and you could bully Latios with this, for example. But when you have to reapply the debuff on every enemy all the time, you are not attacking, it's not worth using. But the other two multipliers are decent. Like I mentioned earlier, when you use Harry, you need help applying the flinch. So in this case, you will have to use Acerola, because it's a 1-bar spam at a 51% chance of flinching, and it's very cost efficient. So you can attack with Acerola and Dragon Pulse right afterwards with Altaria to get some good damage in there. And you also get HP trade of 4, so it places more importance on being on power reserves range to get your max damage out of Altaria. But the thing with Altaria is multipliers is that they are very conditional. They are not permanent, and you also have to put yourself at risk by being on critical health, so you can get a snipe by AoEs or by sinks, so you have to kill the enemy quickly. And there are easier strikers to use, for example Claire and Kingdra. You use apply Thunderwave or spam Dragon Breath and hope for the paralysis, and then you can activate Paralysis Synergy for Draco Meteor, and Paralysis doesn't go away. And as far as I remember, there are no ways for enemies to clear status ailments unless they have full heal, and you can just hammer down at the enemy and just reapply the status on the next enemy, where it's a lot harder to set up for Altaria. Like, you can make it work, but it takes effort. It's not that easy to use. You also get Double Down, but it only powers up Sync when the damage is super effective, so more reasons to bully Latios, I suppose. And the final application for Altaria is a tanking set, because you get a Revenge Boost 9 with these defenses. Like, oh man, it would be a shame not to put that to use. So you can get Dragon Pulse Acumen 9. This always raises your special defense, so you kind of want to Mega Evolve and spam Dragon Pulse to get your greedy boosts and become a very tanky unit. Or you can also raise your special defense by using a Witty Combat 3, which also plays off a form of HP trade-off 4 and on the ropes 3. And also you get down here durable for your trainer move, so you can have endure for a safety net if you are tanking with Altaria and also striking. Because you do get the tools to try and stay on critical HP with Altaria, thanks to the bulk and thanks to the endurance, so you can try to use HP trade-off, but no man, it's very hard to set up in general. Because you also kind of want your tank to be healthy at all times and not put itself at risk unnecessarily. But that's kind of the point of Altaria. Like, it's such a conflicting unit. If you want to tank, then you cannot strike because you cannot use HP trade-off. If you wanted to flinch, then you cannot strike because of Omega Evolving, you lose Twister and you cannot flinch anymore. It's not easy to use, but it is a good unit. So, there is that. Up next, we have Bianca and Musharna, a unit I've been anticipating for a little while because I like Bianca, I think she's an endearing character. Either way, Musharna is our first way of using Psychic Terrain, and oh boy, this right here is a metagame shift, because Psychic types can finally have a multiplier, and people like Giovanni, Caitlyn, Sabrina can get a lot stronger through Bianca. And Bianca itself is a very decent unit. At 3-5 you get some excellent supporting tools, but my problem here is that at 1-5 at base, Musharna is a little underwhelming. So while you have a very decent bulk, this is a little worse than 5-star Swana. You get no recovery, you get the regeneration at the 2-5 and your 3-5 grid, so if you want to start tanking with Musharna, you have to have a fully built unit in order to make that happen, because at base you get no healing, you need a lot of help to tank, and your trainer move also gives you no recovery. So if you told me to tank with this, I would tell you I prefer tanking with Caitlyn instead. And the special attack is okay, it's workable. So the rest of the kit is alright. We got Star Power, and if Subtle Tau does anything, is that this thing is monstrous when set up right. If you didn't know, Star Power increases in damage the more you raise your stats, and I think it caps at 12 buffs, it might be 14, I may be thinking of Lyra Sync, but either way, this thing gets really strong, really fast, and it complements with Musharna's trainer move because this thing increases your defense, special attack, and special defense by 1 stage, but under Psychic Terrain it increases by a couple each. So using this a couple times, you have a fully powered Star Power, pardon the redundancy, and if you give this crit support through Sabrina, for example, then Musharna can deal some very nice damage, cheap damage that is very cheap given the gauge. Which is kind of funny because the focus of this kit is Psychic. You're not supposed to spam a Sword of Power, but rather Psychic, because you have the 10% chance of lowering the special defense with on a roll 4, so it increases the chances, and the Sync increases in power the more the target's special defense has been lowered, so it has a Smarty Pants integrated. But all of this pale in comparison to the raw damage that Star Power can dish out, so in my opinion, I think it's better to focus on Star Power instead. So let's look at the grid. Like I said, the 1-5 grid is very dry. At least you get Psychic Terrain NPR 3, so it's a little easier to spam than Boltner. 2-5 gives you weird recovery, so you can start regenerating health, because this is shock recovery equivalent. Under Psychic Terrain, you regenerate 6.25% of your max HP. And the 3-5 grid is where things start getting insane. Musharna takes a full 180 and becomes a support unit, like it just erases a tech roll, because you get Psychic Terrain, Team Hidden Heal, and Pepper Rally. Like, wow. This is a really crazy combination, because you can start ignoring Musharna as a tank and start using it as a supporting unit instead. Like, I think a very strong team composition could be Bianca, Caitlyn, and Sabrina. Like, I think this would be one step below the Kanto trio, and I hope I am not exaggerating, but I think that would be a really, really strong combination, because Musharna can give everybody the Psychic Terrain multiplier, you can give Sabrina Pepper Rally to start increasing your move gauge, and spam attacks a little more easily, and the team hit and heal so that Kaylin can forfeit healthy healing and focus energy on other tiles, and all three of them would benefit from Psychic Terrain, and Musharna, instead of tanking, it could spam Storm Power and deal very crazy damage, just chipping things away for Sabrina and Kaylin to finish the job. So that in and of itself would be a really strong core. But if you really want to tank, Musharna can make it happen at 3-5. You get, like I said, Weird Recovery plus Team Hit and Heal, so both of these stack. You would get a 12% HP every time you take an action on their Psychic Terrain. And you also get a Weird Shield, which increases your special defense by 50%, which pairs with your trainer move, and it works like Sand Screen in a sense. So this is a good tank, but like I said, I would prefer tanking with Kaylin if I had the choice. And as far as the rest of your tools go, Mutual Assure works like Synchronize in main games. It retributes any status inflicted upon Musharna, but like I said several times, I would prefer not tanking with Musharna. You can make it work if you really want to, though, at 3-5. And you also get Precognition too. This is not that great because Musharna's base speed isn't very high. So even with Fast Track 2 or with Pepper Alley, you wouldn't be generating that much gauge, so I would forfeit that if I had to pick something. Brain Teaser, this increases in the base power of your moves when you lower the target's special defense, but you know my opinion about debuffing multipliers already. They are very hard to set up unless you have somebody else help you, and lowering a special defense is very difficult in this game already. Lucky Entry too, this helps if you tank because you can increase your stats. A random evasiveness will help a lot, but it's really far off the way that I am not sure if you want to pick that. And Unfortuitous 3 kinda helps. Impervious is a very nice lucky skill at 15 cost. Oh wow, what? That is very expensive, and this can help on Legendary Arena, but Musharna has a lot of tools, but I think the focus here is aiding other Psychic types. They can do a lot more with Psychic Terrain than what Musharna can accomplish on its own, but it's still a really good unit at 3-5. That is a caveat. Lastly, we have Nate and Braviary, a highly anticipated unit because Nate is the final component of the Unovan protagonists that we were missing, and I really like Braviary. I think it's one of the cooler flying types. But I know people have preconceptions regarding this sync pair already, and I am hoping to disperse them and show you that Nate is not a completely worthless unit. Every unit has its use, although for the most part Nate is a bad Morty, which is very unfortunate. So please listen to me. If you expect every striker introduced to have the same level of efficiency as Signature Red, you will be sorely disappointed, because strikers are supposed to deal damage, and it's difficult to get creative with that. And for Braviary, its gimmick is using Fly. And Fly is very unfortunate on this kid because the whole kid tries its best to prevent you from using Fly as much as possible. So Fly functions identically to another move in the game, Phantom Force. It's a 2-turn move. When you use it, you enter a period of invulnerability where you will not be able to receive damage, and when this period ends on its own, you will use Fly and deal your damage. And because you turn invincible during this time lapse, you might be tempted to tank with Braviary, and this is a perfectly viable strategy because people have used tanking Morty in the past, even though Nate's stats are pathetic. These are like 3-star gacha tier. Your bulk is okay, I guess. Your attack is very mediocre, your speed is decent, but wow. I think Marshall has better stats than this. He has slightly less bulk, but at least he gets higher attack and Drain Punch to sustain himself. Like, this is kind of crazy how mediocre Nate is. Well, besides that, we also got Aerial Ace. We get Dire Hit Plus and Be Brave. This raises your attack by 3 stages and accuracy by 1. Because Fly has 95% accuracy, so it may miss a target, and that's the reason you get accuracy. It's not a meme to pair with Aerial Ace, which haha never misses. And you also get Power Flux 3 as a multiplier and Quick Combo. This increases your move points every time you take an action by a 40% chance, I believe. So the way you are supposed to use Braviary is by spending all your flies, because it's a quick move. When you use it 3 times, you can no longer use fly, but then you start using aerial ace. So you alternate between them to try and recharge fly, and so you can keep using it. But the problem here is that this kid is nearly identical to another unit. The unit is Morty, so the comparisons are inevitable. Like, both of them function almost identically. Let's look at Morty real quick. Morty, similar bulk, 700 HP, but worse defenses, much better attack. You also get Dire Hit Plus. Shadow Ball is incongruent for the moveset because you want to use Phantom Force, which is physical, but whatever, you get something to spam in between. And Pierce Veil raises your attack and your evasiveness, so you want to tank with Morty, he can start dodging things right away. And Phantom Force is slightly weaker, but the thing with Morty is that he gets 2 tiles to recharge Phantom Force. So you use Phantom Force and you get the 2 40% chances of recharging it, where Nate only gets the 1 chance through Aerial Ace. So it's not easy to use Fly with Braviary. And the grid itself does its best to nerf Fly, because you get no multipliers. If you notice, Ramming Speed, Brutal Clarity, Critical Strike 2, all of them are based around Aerial Ace. So you get no multipliers for Fly besides another Power Flux 2 tile. So, string-wise, Braviary is very disappointing given the base attack stat. But you can increase the power of Aerial Ace, which is not that easy to do to begin with. Although Braviary can do it on its own. You can go for all the multipliers, Aerial Ace, MGR3, all the Aerial Ace styles, and this way you can increase Aerial Ace's power as much as possible, so you can focus on that while trying to recharge Fly, or just do this instead. Although you would need a speed support if you want to have Braviary use Ramming Speed. Well, case in point, you get your multipliers for Aerial Ace, but not for your strong attack in your kit. You also get Evasive Rush. This increases your evasion by 3 stages after using a sync move, so you give Mortis a run for his money whenever you use a sync. And you can also sync nuke, you get Inertia and a handful of sync tiles, but Morty can also sync nuke, he has a blind spot, so it's not a unique role to begin with. So I think looking at Braviary as a primary striker is incorrect, because the raw damage itself will be underwhelming. I think the best way to use Braviary is on dual striker team compositions, because Braviary is a very cost-efficient way of dealing damage. Fly doesn't consume gauge, Aerial Ace has a slow animation, is a 2-bar move that can raise its base power to a very comfortable degree with given the multipliers, and that way you deal cheap damage for another striker to brutalize what remains. For example, I think a good team composition would be Lily, Blue, and Nate, because Nate and Blue would activate type skills that would really fix Nate's base attack, and Lily can fix them accuracy, because both of them have Brutal Clarity. Spoilers, Blue gets Brutal Clarity on his grid, we'll check that on another time. But that way you max accuracy for everybody, activate Brutal Clarity all around, and you can focus Braviary's energy on other things, like you can Sync Nuke for Blue after he's done buffing, and get Brutal Clarity, maybe do something like this. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with Braviary, because this guy is fighting me so hard. Oh, look at that! That's just exactly enough energy to do what you want. With Aerial Ace MGR3, you would upkeep Gauge, deal decent damage. You have to ignore Evasive Rush because Lily will be tanking on that archetype, but maybe you can get Critical Strike 2 instead to buff your base power. I don't know, there are things that Braviary can do that other units can't. The dual striker team composition would be amazing, but that is the whole point of Braviary. It's stuck in a situation where it cannot be the spotlight, and I think that's why people are horribly disappointed with this unit. But it does have its uses, so that's about everything I have to say about this fine feller. Yeah, thanks for watching, and see you next time.